Okay. Oh, we are live. Sorry, I just pressed the button. Um, Hello, Orville Nation. How are you guys? Hello, Mark, the infinitely tired. Oh, I hope you're not that tired today. Layla, Louise. Hello, everybody else who is in here. Um, Welcome, everybody. We have an update from our friend Denali, the creator of the Immortal Mask. And we also have a friend and follower of the channel. You guys all know him as Trek Ace. And Ace is here today to talk a little bit um, about his writing with Star Trek. So, hello, Denali and Ace. How are you guys?
Well, I'm definitely fantastic. Still alive, still breathing. Still, you know, riding this storm call, this virus and all that stuff. But otherwise, can't complain too much.
Yeah,
How are,
having a good.
how are you, Ace?
Yeah, I'm having a good time lately, so I can't really complain.
Okay. Oh, hello, Adega. Hello, Lady Q. How are you guys? Great interview earlier, Adega, on Fortian's channel. So I missed the first half, so I'm going to go back and watch it. But that was a great interview. Okay, so Denali, what is up with the Immortal Mask? We're all, I've been dying to hear more, and every time we have an update, I'm just like, my mouth is watering for more. So please tell us what you and George and everybody on who's marketing for you will tell us what you guys are up to.
Well, right now we're still working hard and fast on the book, or hoping that everything would be done, soon. But as everything, the creative process expands and contract is. But for today, I'm going to be showing a lobby card from the book, and this lobby card is interior art from the book. So you're seeing exclusively now premiering it here is an actual interior art for it. So if you want to show
Okay,
that,
let's take our drum roll, everybody. We're getting our first look at the interior of the Immortal Mask.
um,
Wow,
so yeah,
doesn't that look amazing?
right. Start out with a bang, as one would say.
Oh, do you want to tell us about this image?
Right. So this is the immortal mass. Right now, he's captured by not so nice guys during one of his missions, and this image is pretty cool and everything. Pretty excited how this came out. I What's so amazing about this is painted. We actually painted this. Um, the backgrounds is out of 3D graphics, which basically we did the whole background in 3D. So the warehouse is all 3D, so we can actually move everything appropriately and keep it in focus, which is a big help. I like the detailing that we put in for the painting for the chains and everything, the fires. Um, and it's an exciting, opening to kind of give you a taste of what, the Immortal Mass is all about.
Wow. Yeah, I love the coloring. I love the logo. By the way, the logo is kick ass. What do you think about the logo, Trek Ace? You like it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Did a really good job on that.
Thanks.
Have you seen Ace? Did you see when we have done reviews of Denali before, or were you not a member? You're not following us then?
I might have been following then, but because I remember seeing it mentioned before, but don't I don't typically have tons of time to catch streams,
Gotcha.
so I don't end up caught up on too much of that.
Gotcha. Okay, Denali. Wow. Now these guys are obviously these are bad guys, and they got the immortal mask tied up. How's he going to get
Right.
out of there, Denali? You gonna tell us or?
Well, that's also a surprise right there. So first look for first taste of what's for all things to come, and yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's everything that you'll see, every questions you're asked will be answered with that. So you'll definitely see that. We're looking to try to, release one of these lobby cards once a week, um, and kind of get a fuller picture of what's going on. But no, this is interior art. As I stated before, with the covers, one of the main gripes I had, or main criticism is you always buy a comic book and the cover looks awesome, but then when you open the book, the art and everything isn't as good as the outside. So
True. Yeah, very true. Very true. Denali, let me just get a shout out to Loki. Loki also had a great interview with Abu Nas today on his channel. That was a great interview, Loki. Congrats. Um, Everybody sub to Loki's channel, please. And if I don't, yeah, Loki, you have a wrench. If you can just put your channel in there for so I don't have to do it, I would appreciate it. Put your channel in there so people can sub to Loki's Morning of Mischief and evenings of evangelism or whatever he's doing in the evenings. Go ahead, Denali. Sorry, man.
no, quite all right. You're sure. I'm just a guess here. You're sure. You're running how you want it. But no, yeah, definitely. I'm excited about this. I'm maintaining my promise. What you see on the outside is also going to be indicative of what the inside is. So everything's going to be painted at this level of quality or better. And we're trying to maintain consistency throughout everything. So I'm super excited about this project. It's been a long time coming, and I'm happy to see that all the art developing, everything coming all together.
Can you remind us again, Denali?
Mhm.
Can you remind us again the historical time frame? You mentioned it last time.
Right.
Um,
So,
what what year is it basically?
so the story that's going to be taking place will be in 1974 in Atlanta, Georgia. And
That's
we're going
right,
to be,
in Georgia.
yep. And we're definitely going to, and what we're going to do is we're going to be following a retired soldier who's given a coveted interview with a death row inmate. And what he learns from that interview will thrust him into the city's shadowy underworld. So he'll have to utilize his military training to survive being hunted for information that could topple, the most powerful ruling class in the city. So it's a very in-depth story. And right now my team
Wow.
is working on adapting my 130-page script into a comic book. So that's what I'm mentioning about, you know, expanding and contrasting contracting because, sometimes what takes a couple pages on the script can be done in a panel, and sometimes it might be longer, some different action. So it's basically working on the pacing and reviewing the pages, and seeing, does this work? Does this needs to be lengthened? And all that takes time and effort, review and conversations. And one of the bases for Denali's comics, in my view, is attention to detail. We pour a lot of details on the clothing, on the textures, on the background, on the chain, even the individual chain. We discuss various ways of how to color that. Same thing with the suit for the main villain. So we put a lot of detail and attention to everything. And
Great. And Captain Trek, just to remind you, please put your GoFundMe link in the chat, please. And that's for he's having it's for a procedure he's having done, and so And let's anybody can support Captain Shrek, please do, guys. Now Denali, what yeah, he was like he's a Vietnam vet, right?
Right.
That's right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Vietnam vet. All right, I'm fascinated by the story. I'm just going to let you continue. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, asked me. Yeah, he's a Vietnam vet. He's right now, a journalist investigating. And as things happen, people don't like, snooping around. They get a little bit uneasy. They like to keep their secrets hidden. So when people feel threatened, they go on the attack. So you have to be careful and all that.
Oh, I have to ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know what happened with journalism in Vietnam, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. Mm-hmm. Was he a journalist in Vietnam or was he a soldier?
He was a soldier.
Okay.
So, which is, it makes sense, but I'll leave it there. I wanted to say more, but I'll leave it there.
Gotcha.
That's you hit something there, but I'll leave it there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I am loving the images we're seeing, and again, let me put up the links to Denali's. Now it's denali's.com or theimmortalmask.com, correct?
Yeah.
Both.
They'll redirect you to the same page. Because some people might not remember Denali's and they might just type The Immortal Mask. And some people might say The Immortal Mask is too long to them write Denali's.
Okay.
So either or will take you to the same page where you can sign up for the newsletter. And those who sign up from when I launched this and to the moment I'll launch the campaign, everybody who signs up and buys into the project, which is, purchase a perk during the crowdfunding stage, will get a free limited edition variant trading card that is usable for the board game that's part of this project. And I think we just lost PJ. So, but definitely. So, what is your thoughts, Ace?
Oh, sorry, I was distracted for a second.
No matter. Let's see. I think we lost. I think we lost PJ for a moment.
I believe so. Have you seen this man now missing?
He tends to disappear. Everybody look away so he can reappear.
Come on, folks, close your eyes. I see some eyes open. Don't ask me how I can see them. I can.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I was saying for this project will I'll be also including a board game as part of the crowdfunding stage.
Gotcha.
And if you sign up for the newsletter, which you can go to either denali's.com or theimmortalmask.com, there's a little submit button where you can submit your email, and then you're automatically part of the newsletter when I send out newsletter. And if you purchase, or I guess back a perk during the campaign, you'll be eligible for a limited edition variant trading card that you can use with the board game. And that will only be limited to the people who sign up to the newsletter, and only up to the time that I launch the crowdfunding portion of the campaign.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That sounds like it'll be actually really cool seeing a board game like that.
Absolutely. Welcome back.
Sorry, guys. StreamYard has been kicking me off a lot lately.
Oh, wow.
Like more and more. Sorry, go ahead with what you were saying.
Well, thank you, Mando. Yeah, I'm definitely proud of the art. I was saying that those who sign up for the newsletter will be eligible to receive a limited edition variant trading card that's usable for the board game component that I'll be launching during the crowdfunding stage. From when I launched first announced the Immortal Mask to when I first launched the campaign. Whenever that happens, right now we're going to do a Kickstarter because of the board game component. Right now, we don't have a time frame of when we're going to be launching because of the coronavirus, and a lot of the metrics we're seeing right now is people are not really buying into projects like that. But once things come back to normal and settle down, we'll reassess, and when we feel it's appropriate, we'll launch the campaign. But to answer Mr. Londell, yes, he does have some superpowers. If PJ, if you wouldn't mind, going to the trailer
Okay.
that I showed you last time.
Yeah. 1 second.
Let me see. That'll answer a little bit.
And everybody go to the immortalmask.com or denali's.com. You're directed to the same site. And if you register there, you get on Denali's mailing list and you get updates on what he's doing. So let me go to the trailer. The last trailer, Denali?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put the link in the private chat.
They got erased.
Oh, okay.
I'll
post it. I'll post it again. There you go.
Thanks. There you go.
So it's a mystical artifact from ancient time that's been passed down to, from one successor to another. So what I would say about this project, for those who are comic book lover, think of Doc Savage, The Shadow, Conan. Think of the really pulpy books. Think of H.P. Lovecraft. Think of Doctor Strange. Think of Captain America. Think of those comic book that are adventures. Those really good old time comic books. And this is the idea that I was presenting with you. A really fun book that harkens to Indiana Jones per se. If you want to put it in movie context.
And addressing the superpowers is why you asked for the video, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Should I play it?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. And I'm going to... Okay. I'm just muting you guys so we can hear the music. Okay. And let me just play that again. So I'm just letting you, Denali, I'm leaving the video so we can talk about it.
Right. So this is one of the latest trailers that we premiered the last time I was here. And we'll be
trailer, by the way, done by George Peter Gatsis.
Absolutely. Trailers done by George Peter Gatsis, who's fantastic, who's also working on figurines for the project as well. So this project will also include 12-inch figurines. So it's pretty tall. And we're working out to make it as detailed as possible. So he's doing a lot of testing on that to get to the point where we are, we can show it off. But I'm very excited when we achieve that point, because that's what we're going to be presenting to, to you, the customers, and see if you'll get kicked. It'll be kick ass.
Yeah, so this is a great trailer, and if you guys notice, when you were talking, when Mr. Lindell was asking about superpowers, if you guys look at his hands on this, replay, and I'll let Denali say exactly what it is, but I missed it the first couple of times I watched this trailer, by the way.
That's perfectly all right. It was designed, for those who are paying attention, catch it, and those who doesn't, they'll, if they rewatch it, they'll be able to catch it the next time. And that's one hallmark about the project that I'm happy about, that, you won't catch everything in the first read. You're going to have to read back and forth, and you'll see clues. There's a lot of reability. That's the word, to reason to reread the story multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so to be clear, I mean, we talked about it before. One of his superpowers is that he can use the shadows in a certain way, right?
Right. So he can use the shadows to turn invisible, which was one of the first one that we showed when we did the teaser trailer, one of the first ones. And this one is he can conjure up objects using the shadows, which you saw with the gun. Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, and I love your stamp. I tell you this every time, but I love your stamp.
Thanks.
Oh, and the woman on the wall. We briefly talked about her. The woman on the wall is a protagonist as well, right? On the poster.
Right. Yep, she's the heroine.
She's the heroine. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Wow. Is she his love interest?
That you just gotta find out.
Oh, I gotta find out. Okay. I'm loving it. I'm liking his suit. It's pretty cool. What do you think, Ace? Any opinions on this trailer?
I'll be honest, it's fantastic. I normally don't get too much into this kind of stuff, but dang. And the fact that he can use basically the shadows as part of his superpower, such that's like something that at least I've never heard of before, and I actually love that, because I feel like there's so few original ideas left today for stuff like that. It's kind of like just slight variations off of previous ideas most of the time. So that's just absolutely fantastic.
Yep. And I always I had really deep thoughts about the shadows, because because of my psychology background as a psychologist, the shadow always represent, creativity, untapped potential. So I always felt, for the Immortal Mask as a timeless hero, what better superpower than manipulation of shadows, manipulation of creativity kind of deal.
And thank you, Loki, for putting up Adega's book. Yeah, our channel is always sponsored by Adega's book, Evolution, and definitely everybody who hasn't gotten it. If you haven't gotten it, you guys are wasting away your confinement by not reading Adega's book. So get it. Thank you, Loki. Now wow. Do you have any more new tidbits, Denali?
I think I said a lot for today.
What about everybody says Spawn when they see this. Any comments on that?
I'm glad that people get that familiar. It's familiar. Has nothing to do with Spawn. A lot of it have to do with Egypt symbols. But I'm happy that they think of Spawn when they look at it. It's fantastic. It's quality. So it's flatter. It's like saying, hey, your character looks like Superman. Who wouldn't be happy saying their character looks like Superman,
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah.
I love Todd McFarlane and Spawn. I used to collect Spawn back in the 90s, so it's pretty cool. But no, if you guys see Spawn in there, awesome. It's cool,
Loki says it looks bitchin'. The mask looks bitchin'.
Wow. Definitely happy. But yeah, if you want to, he looks more like the Phantom or Shadows. Well, yep. I happy to hear that. It's the essence of everything. Yeah. And I'm happy.
What about Lady Q's comment?
The Eye of Ra and Anubis in the mask. Oh, she knows her Egypt. She sees it a lot. So I was mentioning it. So wow. I'm happy because you're attributing to something that connects you guys. So, and that's always I think in marketing and a good product and a good character is you can attribute something that to the character. And I'm happy because that means that our efforts paying off, that you guys are seeing something that connects to you personally.
I love it when authors bring in mythology into science fiction or adventure, and this is very interesting component, Denali. Very interesting.
I mean, those mythology is our traditions, and it's primal to our human psyche. So the fact that we can attach that is, I'm basically saying, yes, you are doing a good job. And when, these comments are validating the hard work that I'm doing, saying, yes, you are tapping to that primal well, so to speak.
Hello, Kat. How are you? Kat King, who we interviewed not too long ago. Kat, by the way, let me just say real quick, if you... I'm giving you a wrench so you can put in the Abaddon trailer, Project Abaddon. And 1 sec. Please feel free to put in, a couple times during the stream your trailer and any other material that you want to post, Kat. Great. Ace, any comments about this amazing work we're seeing?
Nothing else, but it's just, again, it's absolutely fantastic.
It is. And I just want to clarify, any of our channels who are part of our community who have been given a wrench, please feel free to put in your own channel's information, 2 or 3 times or 4 times. I don't care during the stream. So please, guys, please, because we can't. Otherwise, like somebody like Adega would be, slaving away at putting in links, and Adega just needs to enjoy the stream. Thank you guys. Thanks everybody. So wow. So any other little just one more little tiny little tidbit, Denali, we can squeeze out of you today?
Wow. I'll say that Letty Q hit something with the Eye of Ra in the Anubis things. And I'll connect that to what Mando said about the green eyes, because all 3 connected. It was purposely done. The fact that he sees it as Spawn, that's pretty. I get where he's coming from on that, but it was really more story based driven, and why green eyes and the Eye of Ra and everything. So if you know your mythology about the Eye of Ra and Anubis and green eyes, you start getting a bigger picture. And I think I might have said too much about it.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. I don't know how long you can hang around for, Denali, but I wanted to have Ace. I wanted to introduce Ace.
Mm-hmm.
Ace, Trek Ace, guys, is a follower and friend of the channel. You guys have all seen him in the chat at one time or another. And I'm going to leave up this image for a little bit before we move on to Ace's stuff. But Ace is a writer. He's a science fiction writer, and he has been wanting to. He is a devout Trek fan, and he is a connoisseur of everything Trek. And so I just wanted to. We don't know the direction of we don't really know the direction of Ace's work, whether it'll end up in actual Trek or whether it'll end up in fan film Trek or wherever it might end up. But I did want to just welcome him and have him talk about the work he's doing, and so welcome again, Ace.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to say where you hail from or not?
Sure, I'll say it. I said it once, but I'll say it a few weeks back. But for anyone who didn't ever catch that, I am from Florida, the wonderful hot state.
Great. How's the weather down there now?
Hot.
Hot. That's kind of nice, actually. Yeah.
No, it's not nice. It's not nice.
It's not hot, dry. It's wet, hot, wet.
Yeah, that makes it really bad down here. Like. Spend a few weeks here in the middle of our summers. You'll immediately regret it.
Okay. Yes. Yes, it's very hot and humid. So Ace, tell us about you. Tell us about your what do you aspire to do with your writing, and I mean, just introduce us to who Ace is.
Yeah, sure.
And what does Ace write about?
Yeah, sure. And first, just to answer Lady Q there, notice your question, where in Florida? Central Florida, Orlando, actually. So just to pop that in there.
And then Ricky's in Florida too. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Floridians unite. But yeah, so so let me go ahead and just give a little brief introduction. So first and foremost, to those who are not familiar with me, I am a 21-year-old technically student. I've kind of pushed the classes to the side for now. It's about to go on 22 actually in a couple of weeks. Wow, I forgot how close that is. And I have a really immense passion for Star Trek. It's meant a lot.
Premature happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And LDG is also in Florida. Anybody else in Florida? Maybe we'll just make this an all Florida stream.
Yay!
Hey, representing Bay Area here.
Oh, and for T, and by the way, great interview today with Sir Adega Outlaw. Great interview. Awesome. Go ahead, my friend. Sorry, Ace.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. But yeah, I have a really immense passion for Star Trek. It's hard to explain other than I've had I've had a lot of rough times over the years. Suffice it to say, I've had to really work on dealing with a lot of like anxiety, depression, things like that. And for me, I've always loved a lot of shows, a lot of TV, because it takes you to a completely different world and kind of lets you just cut loose from all the stress of reality. And for me, Star Trek not only did that, like to be beyond anything that any of the other shows ever really did for me, in just such a special way, and just all the principles of Star Trek, but it was also something that I bonded with for a long time with my father. Um, we don't watch it as much anymore. It's actually something I've started to bond with my sister on instead. We watch a lot of that together. We're right in the middle of season 4 of Voyager for like the second time for both of us watching it together. I think third or fourth time for me watching it, and I fell in love with it watching it with my father. So that's one of the other reasons it's just been so important to me. Um, so I've always loved it, and I actually started this writing on a whim. I was bored. It was in my year right between starting into college and having just finished high school, and I just pulled it up on my computer one day, pulled up a notepad, and I just decided to start jotting some stuff down. I was like, okay, let's see where this takes me, because I was like, you know what, I have nothing better to do. There hasn't been any Star Trek around in so many years, minus the films. That's another story. I don't count that. I'm concerned like from the television aspect, continuing the main story. And so I was like, oh, okay, let's try writing it. So I spent a little time, didn't spend much time, and I started just writing some stuff down. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe spent a few days, and then I got caught up in other things, pushed it to the side, and then I picked it up. I believe in later that year, right after I'd started into college classes. I was originally going to go for information technology, found it was way too boring for me, and so I pulled back up the notepad on my computer, took another look at it, and I was like, let's see what I can do with it. So I went ahead and I erased what I had because I wasn't satisfied with it. Rewrote it, erased it again, rewrote it again, erased it one more time, rewrote it one more time, and like right at that moment, it's like a flick. It's like I mixed up my words there. It's like a switch had been flicked, and just I kind of came to the realization. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love the creative. I love kind of being able to go ahead, make a new story out of it. And I was like, I kind of had like almost like a sixth sense about it. Like, this is it. This is exactly what it should be. This is great. This is fantastic. And I just went ahead. I took it. I kind of took it from there. I kept writing. Spent a lot of time continuing to work on the plot for it. And I kept falling more and more in love with the idea of it. And I kind of came to the realization, it's like, this is what I want to do with my life. I wasn't sure about other things prior to that, but it was like through all that, I was like 100% certain. And I'm a very uncertain person too. I self doubt a lot. I second guess a lot. This stuff though has been like the one stable thing for me that I have never questioned, that I've never doubted, and I've been like, yes, this will not only work, not only could this work, but this is absolutely what I want to do. This is absolutely what I was meant to do, and just it's gone from there. And I spent probably it's it had some points of like breaking in between, uh, where I had a bit of a hard time, but in probably it's probably mostly been the past year, I've really started to take off with it. So probably about, I want to say last July or August, I continued to finish up some parts of the plot, and then I actually started for the first time translating it into a script. I started to get ideas down for working on concept art for it, characters, all that stuff, and just it's continued to not only come together really well, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm falling in love with the characters, with the whole ideas behind it. Um, Lost my train of thought there for a second. But oh yeah, but
Now,
I'm
so?
just
Is it
staying
more?
passionate.
Is it? Are you more focused on like Voyager, or is it just Trek in general?
Is well, could you clarify that?
Is your writing more focused on the Voyager series or Trek in general, or TOS Trek, or
It's the idea of it is to be essentially what comes after the Deep Space Nine Voyager era, basically about I'd say I still haven't gotten the date completely set. Basically, early 25th century, about 35 years or so after Voyager's return home, with a lot of inspiration from Deep Space Nine, especially because that's my favorite series in the franchise, and a lot of the stuff in there is paying homage to that, and it's almost like an absolute love letter to it. So that's where I get like a lot of that inspiration.
so the time frame that you're working with is just a little bit after the time frame of Picard, right?
Yeah. So again, early 25th century.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, Picard is towards the end of the 24th century.
Yeah, it's like, what is it, like 24 and oh wait, it's like 99, right?
I thought it was like 2487, something like that. I don't remember. Someone wanna go ahead and double check that? That'd be great.
So now you you obviously you've completed some stories, correct? Or some Star
Um,
Trek stories.
no, this is actually the only work that I have been doing for it, and I've been super focused down on this and making this as perfect as possible, trying to work out every little detail on this. This has been my entire focus. This is my baby.
Okay. Now we know. Listen, we know. Um, Ace, we know a lot of people who have done some to do amazing fan films. I mean, the Max Entertainment World with Trey, who's in here all the time. I mean, the Axonar people have done amazing films. The there's several groups in our community. Star Trek Horizon. The people who are doing the Planetary Step. Eric, who's doing the Planetary Step Orville film. They have done. They're planning to do big stuff, even though they give us a very short 5 minute sequence at the beginning, but they have big plans for what they're doing. So there's a lot of fan films. Are any of these script, is any script that could come from Ace, is it viable for fan film?
I'm I'm not sure because for me, I have a hard time. I have a hard time with that because I feel like if it goes into the fan film, especially by the standards that are set by CBS, what they
Oh yeah,
allow,
you won't be able to pull it off. Yeah.
it makes it very very difficult. Like if I absolutely had to, if I had no other choice, I would probably look into trying to adapt it into like maybe a two part fan film, something like that, even if it was just to go ahead and essentially use that as an example to like CBS, like, hey, this is kind of what it would look like and how it could function. But obviously my end goal is to preferably get it into CBS and make it actual canon Trek, because I want to be able to share it with as many people as possible. I think that's one of the best ways to do it.
Now, what about TV execs taking your script? I mean, imagine it got accepted. What about TV execs taking your script and politicizing it agenda wise? I mean, that's a real possibility too.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of things like that I've thought long and hard about, and I think when it comes down to it, I would have to, with like a contract, for example, I'd have to very carefully work out details like that because as well as try and emphasize the fact that that hasn't worked and audiences have been rejecting that because I don't want to politicize my work. I don't feel that's right to do. I don't want to go ahead and cause any divides, nothing like that, because that's, in my opinion, that is the complete opposite of the spirit of Star Trek. You can't go ahead and be producing a series and a franchise that where some of the core values are supposed to be acceptance and things like that, and even if your views aren't the same, while going ahead and basically attacking people for not having the same views.
And thank you, Lady Q. That's correct. Yeah, it is 23. I'm remembering now. It is 23.99 because there was a 21-year difference where with where the Orville is at now, which is the Orville's is in 24.20 right now. Yeah, thank you. And Denali, I know you have to go soon, so whenever you have to go, just let us know. And
right. Well, yeah, I'll definitely let you know. I did have a couple comments.
Yeah.
So, like Ace, I did bond with my dad over Star Trek. So me and my dad usually watch the original series, watch the movies, the original movies, watch the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, which had Seth MacFarlane as an ensign there, which is, if not a lot of people know, he was in Enterprise. But I think I do agree with Ace that the CBS executive and the secret hideout team kind of forgot what Star Trek is all about. And this is a quote that, I like from the creator, Gene Roddenberry, that he says, Star Trek was an attempt to say humanity will reach maturity and wisdom. On that day, it will begin not just to tolerate, but to take a special delight in differences in idea and differences in life forms. If we cannot learn to actually enjoy these small differences, to take a positive delight in the small differences between our own kind here on this planet, that we do not deserve to go out into space and meet diversity that is almost certainly out there. And I believe in forcing what you were mentioning, PJ, forcing, politicizing, identity driven ideas and agendas. They basically trample on those idea that Star Trek is based upon. By enforcing such agenda, you're actually not respecting the diversity that is there, kind of deal. It becomes you become the villain and trying to be the hero, kind of deal. And is one of the reasons why I don't really consider, since the split and remerge or anything from Bad Robot and Secret Hideouts film to be canon, because they're not canon at all. It's really their own separate canon. They're not really Star Trek. So even with Picard and Discovery, I don't consider them Star Trek because they're and basically they are everything but Star Trek. This is, if I really wanted to look at it, this is the mirror universe of Star Trek.
If you ever have the same spirit of Star Trek.
Exactly. If you ever wanted to know what the mirror version of Star Trek is, just look at Picard, look at Discovery. That is the mirror universe. That's not Star Trek, and I don't even consider them at all part of it. And
I'm just putting out I thought about this the other day, guys. I'm just putting out this hashtag at no agenda in sci-fi, NAI sci-fi. Anyway, that's just me being crazy. But go ahead.
Well, it goes again back to what I mentioned into the first stream, which is Star Trek and Star Wars take a humanist approach to storytelling. And humanist is all inclusive, meaning that you're not forcing them to change. You are celebrating because they are different. And whereas current trends, where there was an article that I was reading where it said, why is today's show so nihilist and self-depressing, is these people don't really realize what they're doing anymore. good writers knew how to deconstruct a story because they had another story to tell. But because it became so popular, everybody started deconstructing everything to the point that they literally destroyed the very thing they were trying to kind of understand. And one of the things that we need to kind of take back as a creative force, fans like Ace, myself, and others, is that we need to bring back hope. We need to bring back utopia. We need to kind of bring back, that humanist approach to storytelling again, which it seems that a lot of these writers have forgotten about. And I think I was really thinking deeply while I was listening to Ace is that one of the reasons a lot of people like D Space Nice is because despite of the technology advancing, despite the special effect, the core element of Deep Space Nice and every other show in the Star Trek is the humanitarian approach, the human element, the relationship, the conflict,
absolutely.
where together they rise above the situation, where individually they would fall. And that's something that you have differently with Picard. You're having Picard trying to rise alone and he's failing. You're having Michael try to rise above and you're failing. You're having Spock try to rise above and you're failing. And if you look at the original Trek, you have McCoy, Kurt, and Spock and his team all working together to solve the day. The same thing with the Next Generation. You're having Picard, his number one, and his group rising together to solve the day. And then Deep Space Nine, Cisco, Worf when he came over, and everybody else rise above, together. And every time you've seen them fail, it's because they try to overcome them by themselves. So another key factor of Star Trek that they're forgetting is together we build each other up. We make up our weaknesses. Our differences is our strengths. And with that, we rise above together. And with Discovery, the best way my dad watched it, and he said, it's broken people being awarded to break the universe more. That's literally what it
People,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't rise above. Basically, they made the universe has become worse than when it began. And that was his summation of the first season of Discovery. And the same thing with Picard.
And just to remind everybody, both of these guys are writers. So DINALE is the writer of his comics, and Ace is also a writer. Ace, so I mean, how I never want to tell anybody that something is impossible, because I actually think that anything's possible, and you could surprise the hell out of anybody. Just end up being a Star Trek writer in a couple of years. Who knows? But what's your approach basically for your goal? What's your approach right now with what you're doing?
Right now, I've mostly been focused on the creative aspect, because outside of that, I'm not as well versed. I've done research into different aspects of the industry, how to get things like this in, and I've actually had quite a few good suggestions. I have quite a few good ideas. It's not necessarily the easiest stuff to do, but there's some concepts though that I am pursuing actively right now.
That's pretty awesome, Ace. Based on your writing, what have you learned, just in the process of creating your Star Trek, basically your Star Trek writing? What have you learned, development of characters? You know, was there something insightful that you realized as you were writing that you didn't realize, from watching, translating those core elements that you like into into basically into your own writing. So kind of like, you know, that challenge, that what makes Star Trek Star Trek kind of deal. If you're understanding.
I think I'm getting what you're saying. Yeah, I'll definitely say this when it came to starting it. Which first of all, I've had no teaching on this. I've never been taught any of this. This has all been self learned, and it's an interesting experience because what you see on the screen, there is so much to it that goes to putting that together, especially with just writing the script itself, and like it just while I don't necessarily respect all the stories that are written at times by different screenwriters and such, especially with again modern Star Trek, I will say this at least, especially with the really good stuff. Through this experience, it has given me a whole boatload of respect for the people, especially in the past decades back, especially back when Star Trek was in its prime, that were able to pump out good episodes every week. The script writing is again, especially to make it really good, and I think especially early on while you're still getting used to it, is such an intense process. And requires so much work, so much attention to detail on it. You have to seriously be so attentive to all sorts of different little things. And when creating like the new characters too, it's just you have to think about all sorts of different aspects, such as like, okay, and are they based on anything else? Have they been inspired off of a previous character? What do they have any similarities to any previous characters? What sets them apart? And there's just it's been such again, it's been an absolutely amazing experience, and I've been consistently working on improving my writing throughout the whole process as I keep learning new things about it. And it's just it's definitely again what you see on the screen. Uh, to kind of sum it up, there's just so much that goes into that I'll be honest, like beforehand, I never really even thought about entirely.
Now, do you want to share? Is there anything you want to share about the premise of the story?
Yeah, happily enough. Of course, too, if anyone has any questions and such, I love talking about this, so I will happily answer any questions when I get a chance as well. But yeah, the premise is first and foremost, I'll say this: Star Trek Picard is out the airlock. I'm sorry. There's some people who like it, but even if you do, I'm sorry. It screws up so much of the Star Trek universe that it's not, unless you want to keep writing dystopia style, it's not gonna work. Alternate timeline, whatever you want to call it, it's out the airlock for me. So the whole idea is about 35 years on approximate early 25th century, 35 years after Voyager's return home, end of the Dominion War era. Um, and focusing again, as you'd expect, new crew, and it's back to a starship, not another space station like Deep Space Nine, but it's very heavily inspired off of Deep Space Nine. And I thought like, okay, what are basically the two considered the best Treks? And I was like, well, there's Next Generation, there's Deep Space Nine. So the whole premise with it as well is kind of taking it more of a writing style of Deep Space Nine, while still taking the style being on a starship, a lot more of the single what do you want to call them, single arc episodes or single episode arcs that TNG has, and kind of combine them together.
Let me ask you this, Ace, because I'm asking you this because you're 21 or almost 22.
Sure.
Because have you had time to go back and like, have you watched TOS?
Yes, I have seen it before. It's been a long time since I have seen it, but yeah, I have seen it at least once before.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very different perspective. I imagine you have a very different perspective for a lot of us who are in the chat who are older than you, who kind of like, there was a moment, and I was very young, but there was a moment where we only had TOS, and Yeah, I think it's fantastic that you're. Listen, there's a lot of young people in our community your age. For our co-host Katie is one of them, who are just you know total Trekkies, and and so go ahead. I'm sorry, Trek Ace. Go ahead.
Oh,
So
it's
you were
all
telling
good.
us.
Yeah, it's all good. Like, and honestly, that's something really nice to hear. Because I'll be honest, I rarely see in my own age group. I very very rarely see anyone who's actually interested in Star Trek, which is one of the reasons I'm so like hell bent on getting this done and getting this out there, because I want to be able to show a new generation, my own generation, and after that, that Star Trek is awesome. It's not just some nerdy sci-fi that your parents watch. It's actually amazing. It's worth it. Um, trying to think though. I kind of lost track of where I was
Oh well,
before that.
I'm sorry. You were kind of telling us that you're inspired a lot on TNG and DS9.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So it's inspired off of both of those, and it's got, especially now that I'm watching Voyager through again, it's got a bit of Voyager inspiration. I know not everyone considers that the best series. I like it. I think it did some great things right. Don't kill me for it. And like the ship itself, if I get a chance here, pop up my screen share. Do you mind if I actually do that real quick?
uh, no, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Let me see how this
Absolutely.
works. Let's see. Share screen. Da. I can select which one. Wonderful. Okay, so I believe this is sharing it correctly.
Mando asks if you have Discord.
Yes, I do have Discord. Indeed. I will go ahead. I'll pop that in the chat real quick.
Okay. Okay, here we are. This is you.
There we go.
You're gonna. Do you want me to pop it in the chat, or are you gonna pop it in the chat?
I just popped it in the chat.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Let me see if I can actually pull this up the right way on here. If it's sharing right. Let me adjust the screen share for that real quick. Let's see. Come on.
But while he's doing that,
Yep.
I see Mr. Miles takes a Farscape, for example. It's not about humanism or dystopia or utopia. It doesn't seem to lean on any of those frameworks. It has to do with family and relationships. The crew of Moya is humanistic in that it builds a relationship of a family where these broken souls in the run from a evil empire basically, connect to one each other and take care of one another, which makes it fun. But I love Farscape. It's a series that I can watch over and over again, and that's a hallmark of a good story. And I want to see more after the peace makers war. Farscape's rule.
Yeah, Farscape was Australian production, by the way.
And it was produced by the Jim Henson Company as well. So
That's right. That's right.
So I'd be interested in watching any future Farscape if they ever release any more miniseries or movies.
Yes, may the fourth be with you all. May the fourth be with you all.
Okay, I pulled it up. I'm not sure if it's showing right now. Is it? Are you seeing anything on your?
Let me add it. 1 second.
Gotcha. There we go.
Let me add it. There you go.
For whatever reason, it won't let me pull it up all the way, so it's going to be a little makeshift, and that should about do it, I believe. Let me just double check on that end. Yep, so this is about as big as it's going to get, unfortunately, right this second. But
Okay.
yeah, so like this is actually one of the spots where I say it's inspired by Voyager. Oops, that's the wrong way. Well, let me rotate that a little better. So it's actually, the new ship is called USS Legacy, and it's actually based on the Intrepid class hull. So if you see there,
Cool.
I actually did before. I can make that a little larger, I think. Yeah, I can. Okay. So I actually based it off of.
It's not a nipple Chronos. It's a starship.
I actually pulled up an old concept art of Voyager for this one, because I needed this. I had someone, Dyspeptic Cadre, I believe, who had offered to go ahead and do a rough 3D model of this, and he's actually still working on that, I believe. So it's a little shout out to him there. Absolutely awesome really appreciate that. And so I'd previously only had, I'll show you here, I'd only had the top-down view of it, which is really rough. This was like my first time sketching. I'm not the best with it still. So he was like, okay, he's like, can you get me another view for that? I'm like, yeah, sure thing. But I have terrible depth perception. I am absolutely horrible at that, especially when it comes to sketching. So I'm just like, I have no idea how to size and scale. So what I actually did for this as a little bit of a trick is I pulled up an old concept art of Voyager on my computer, put it like full screen, put the paper up on my computer, traced it out, and then what I had after I traced that out, I started going ahead and slowly making little edits. So you can see like all of the portions that have been erased that were previously Voyager. It's not done yet, but that's about as far as I've gotten at this point.
That's fine. You know, I'm
Top-down
wondering if
shows a little better.
Ace, I'm wondering if Denali and I should just connect you to George, because it looks like you might find it useful to have to talk to him at some point.
I might. But yeah, I based it off the Intrepid class hull because I was like, I liked the design of Voyager, and I was sick of the plain flying saucer kind of style of like the Constitution class and stuff like that. Not that it can't work and be good, but it's like I wanted something a little more unique to it. So I came up with this.
Do you see? Are you seeing Mando's comment, by the way, here?
Oh, let me double check. Yeah, that would be absolutely awesome, Mando. I would seriously appreciate it. That would do so much to help me with that. but yeah, so I liked the shape of Voyager. I kind of did a basic sketch of it because I was like just the basic shape of, I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor here on this, but I just did that basic front section first. Got down a general shape. I was like, yeah, I kind of like that. It feels like kind of more of a natural evolution from the Intrepid class, a believable successor to it. And then kind of added the back end and kind of experimented a bit. The nacelles are slightly curved. I know I had an argument with a friend once who was like, that's not possible. You can't do that. And I'm like, okay, just calm down. It's okay. We'll work that out in time. And I actually have another one too. This is what it started as originally. This is the Type 22 shuttlecraft. This was actually the first thing I sketched. It wasn't actually the ship itself. And I had started this initially when I wanted to do the full ship design. And then I realized it was way too small, and I forgot my stupidity. And I went, I'm like, this is a little too tiny. And instead of erasing it, I kind of kept it going. And I came up with a design that I absolutely loved with this. It's like, this looks kind of nice. It kind of even feels like almost like an even more evolved version of the Delta Flyer in a way, if anyone remembers that shuttle. So I was like, yeah, I think this is a pretty good one. So I decided to keep that.
See, a secret of all writers is never throw away an idea. You might not use it right now, but you'll find a way to use it later on.
Yep, because for me, like, instead of going ahead just like erasing stuff or just necessarily deleting, I like to go ahead and kind of save it and see what I can do with it. Because instead of like that, again, it was small, and I was originally going to just take my eraser to it, just get rid of it. And even the shape didn't necessarily start out how I wanted to, but I decided, I was like, you know what? Instead, let's go ahead and see what I can do with that. Let's see what this can become. What I can kind of get in my imagination here. What I can be inspired by to come up with this design. See what this turns into. And if I don't like it, okay, I don't like it. I just go on to something else and I try again. And fortunately, of course, I absolutely loved it.
Thank you, Lady Q, for putting up Ace's channel, by the way. I appreciate that.
Yeah, catch my breath a second.
Yeah, I like this. It is very Delta Flyer-ish.
And the thing is too, I didn't even think about it until after I completed it. And then when I kind of went back, I think that's when I think about the time I did that. It was about the time that I was watching for the first time. I was watching Voyager with my sister, and it wasn't too much longer after that we watched it. And I went and I looked in a second. I'm like, wait a second, there's something a little familiar here, and then I'm like, oh, I kind of forgot about it. So I kind of wonder in a way if that kind of was like on the back of my mind while I did this, and I didn't even realize it, and it kind of just came out that way. But either way, I loved the Delta Flyer. It was awesome, and I'm like, yeah, sure, let's. I like a new design like that. It's a little better than the boxy shuttles back from TNG. Like those, man, I just boxes. They're flying boxes. I'm sorry. I have a hard time with those.
Oh, wait a second. Let me just Lady Q. Okay, so Lady Q, what you shared is something for what Lady Q shared. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. Allergies. I couldn't even mute myself. I apologize. I tried to mute myself. I couldn't find it. Lady Q was sharing was not Trek Ace's channel, but you can go back and look at it. Ace, it's something that she wanted to show you on her channel.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead. So you were looking at Voyager and it sounded really familiar to you.
Yeah, but I guess it's kind of natural evolution from that. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Although I'm tempted to change the name because I don't get why they went so unimaginative. Type 22, Type 13, Type whatever. It's like, where's your creativity here? It's like I loved how they named all the runabouts on Deep Space
Ace,
Nine.
you don't actually have a YouTube channel, do you?
I do, but I don't use it. I tried it for gaming back when I was like 13 or 14, made like 1 or 2 videos, and never since. I'd always wanted to, but never got to it.
I will be putting in his Twitter at Lady Q, and so you guys can talk in the chat. Go ahead, Ace. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm just trying to think where to go from there. So oh yeah, so with the general premise of where I'm trying to take the story is again, you have to understand. If I haven't said it enough times, I will still say it again. I love Deep Space Nine so much. It's so amazing, and I loved the Dominion War. So what one of the things in there inspired me greatly, the Breen. And I was just like, oh, I love these aliens. The Breen are so they're amazing. So the general premise, without revealing too much of that, at least, because there's some things I want to keep from being spoilers. Uh, but the general premise is that at this point in time, the Breen have basically, after the war, after the Dominion War, we're obviously we're not too happy about losing and about basically being forced into capitulation. So they basically went deep into their own territory again and kind of isolated themselves. So, kind of similar to how the Romulans basically hadn't been seen between, like, I believe around the TOS era and TNG era, if I'm remembering my lore correctly. And that was like the first time they'd been encountered in ages. So similar concept to that, except they haven't been just staying isolated. They have been paying attention to what's going on, and they are very intent on trying to push back out again and try and claim some new territory. Is about the best way I can say it without again revealing too much. So kind of in a way, not necessarily like a full-blown war like a Dominion war again, because I don't think that's necessarily appropriate, and I think that would just get a little too heavy, but almost like, I guess you could describe it almost like a shadow war without revealing too much about it.
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah,
especially you've been giving a lot of hints.
to go ahead, just I want to see if you can figure it out.
Nah.
These yes, guys, these two authors are obsessed with shadows.
Oh.
Go ahead, Ace.
But yeah, and just like for me, I was like, what can be, because I feel like with every series you have to have a villain. you have to have some sort of antagonist. And I'm like, well, the Klingons have been done enough times, and I kind of want to develop them more as allies of the Federation, especially after the war, because I feel like that would have strengthened their bonds really greatly. And again, we've had enough of them fighting with the Federation. That's kind of gotten old and overused. We've already seen conflict before with the Romulans to an extent, although I'm not saying Romulans won't be involved in some way. That's a possibility, folks. It's a
Now,
possibility.
Ace, let me ask you a quick question. Now, what if there are in between? Okay, there's a few possibilities between getting this, getting nowhere, and getting to script on TV for a TV show, and novelization or comics, for example, are possibilities. Are you open? Are you open if Star Trek accepts your script as a comic or novel, for example?
Potentially, but I'll be honest, that's not really where my passion is for it. Because for me, that feels more like a one and done, and you can't go ahead and I feel convey exactly the same as you can on the screen. There's so much more you can do on the screen with actors taking on those roles than you can do in a book. And at the same time, again, you have to remember. For me, one of the big reasons and focuses here is because I really want to bring this back into the mainstream again. I really want to get people's attention with Star Trek again and say, like, hey, this is still good. You can come back. You can have fun with Star Trek still. It's not the nerdy crap that you thought before. It's absolutely fantastic. And you can't, I don't think you can get that same effect with the books. It's mostly going to be people within the fan base that are going to pay attention to something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, for a TV show for Star Trek, since it's usually a TV show, the most power would be you would have to become a showrunner, and basically that's how you would control it. It's controlling by the story board group basically, and the showrunner, which is the whole head story writer, that would do all the stories. So that's definitely going to be a uphill battle, especially with the current contract with Secret Hideout and everything. Because of the remerger, we don't know what the state of those contract is, and I think one of the reasons is the head of the now remerged CBS Paramount, which they might unmerge because their stocks are falling below one of the guidelines of the remerger, is that they might let Star Trek fallow for a while because of the damage, and this is merchandising, the damage done to the merchandising part, because no licensors really want to invest their time into Star Trek, and that's where the movies and TV show comes from. It's not so much the ratings, but it's the merchandising. So I think one of the aspects of your writing that you're going to have to convey to bring this project to life, besides awesome storylines, is the merchandising ability of that project as well.
Yeah. I think I've got some good concepts that'll work with that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I get you, and believe me, I know that this is I've already thought about all this stuff so much, and it's just like I know this is going to be a very difficult fight to not only get this in, but to be able to have the appropriate control, and then to be able to again convince them, like, okay, this is going to work. You're going to be able to merchandise this well, and to be able to, of course, convince those companies to get the licenses for that stuff. It's definitely because, again, yeah, you're right. They've damaged the reputation so badly, and Patrick Stewart did them no favors with that his premiere interview that he did.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I saw that. I don't normally see Star Trek talked about much outside the community, if at all. And that's the one time I've seen it in any recent times really talked about outside of the community, and it was not positive, and that's something you want to avoid.
Right. Well, to do an adult, kind of like my experience with the current Star Trek is me and my dad watched the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, and this was the second week, and we went to the biggest movie theater on a Saturday morning, and it was empty. It was just me and my dad watching Star Trek on the second week, meaning that it wasn't nothing to be excited about. Because I remember
What movie was it?
Star Trek, the 2009
The 2009? Okay.
Yeah, they watched the first week, and then the second week when we went, it was completely empty. It was just me and my dad watching the movie. And this was the biggest movie theater in the city.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem with JJ methods of mystery box. He tried to do a mystery box with Star Trek and didn't work. He did it into Shadows, and that's why they came and do Star Trek 4, because there's nothing to invest into those movies. It's a shallow. It's a apparent shallowness when you remove the mystery from JJ's stories.
Yep.
Let me just say, guys, I have a really hard time with the Beastie Boys killing off the bad guys in the third movie. Anyway, I just had to throw that in there. Sorry.
No, I agree with you, and I know why he did it. Why they put it in there, because it was supposed to be a kind of callback from the first movie,
Yeah,
where he's driving, you know, that nice car that he launches it over the cliff. But but I'm in agreement with that. It wasn't really my opinion, and everybody's more than welcome to disagree. I agree with PJ that wasn't needed there. But I'll compare it over to the last of the original movie, which is the Undiscovered Country, where it was the fourth week and people were still coming to watch that. There were still lines for that. And I vividly remember that because it's something that my dad wanted to watch as well. And I looked at it and I'm like, and we see the difference, you know, about 20 years difference. And I'm like saying, wow, this is how Star Trek has fallen. That, you know, they watched it to see what it's all about and they found it, it was nothing amazing. You could have taken Star Trek out of the title and put some other title in, and it would have been the same thing.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And that's something that I kind of dislike about Corporation is that they try to make original content but using old brands. And then they tell fans of the old brand that this is not for you, this is for other people. Then if that's the case, why use the old franchise logos? Why don't create a new thing all by yourself, right? It's kind of disingenuous in that regard. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like Kathleen Kennedy. She wanted this agenda thing into the movie Star Wars, and instead of, you know, it's like, you know, if you want to do your own thing, why don't you build your own franchise instead of, you know, putting it in George Lucas? George Lucas' story is it's his own beast. It's his own internal logic. You can't really change the formula without, you know, dividing the fan as it is. And unfortunately, what I'm getting a lot of this is not so much hate and upset, it's more indifference. And that's the most scariest part, is that these executives, CBS, you know, Lucasfilm, Disney, Marvel, DC, you know, all these pop culture, they're driving fans into indifference.
Yeah. And I just got to say right now that Denali's talking about Star Trek movies, as cool as that big huge like space Yorktown space station type settlement was, it's extremely vulnerable to anything, and I really think they need to think things through whenever they're creating new And that's a big problem with Secret Hideout, Trek and JJ Trek. And anyway, Ace, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep us going where you keep us telling us where you're taking us with your description.
Yeah, it's good, it's good. Sure.
And
But yeah,
Denali, if
so
whenever you got to go, just let us know.
okay, so yeah, essentially, I just was watching through Deep Space Nine, especially when they introduced the Breen. I got so inspired from that, and I decided it's like they're perfect for villains because, like I was saying, you have to have a villain of some sort, and I didn't want to kind of reuse any of the previous ones necessarily. So the Breen I felt were an amazing species, and I felt they got robbed so badly in Deep Space Nine. They were shown in a handful of episodes, over a smattering of episodes over the first five, maybe 6 seasons. Name dropped quite a few times, which gave me so many context clues to them. By the way, which if you ever want to learn about different species, even if they haven't been shown a lot, guys, you go back through, watch any of the series that they have at least been mentioned in before. They will go ahead and often drop all kinds of different little context clues that are just really amazing, especially when you don't catch them like the first time through, and you're just like, oh, I never knew that before. Sorry, you want to say something?
I was going to ask you something. Now, I think there's a lot of people who love Deep Space Nine, and I love Deep Space Nine too. I do think there is a fundamental component to Trek about exploration, though. And for me, as good as Deep Space Nine was, I was missing the element of exploration. And I wanted to ask you how does the element of exploration fit into your Trek?
Sure. Yeah, that's obviously one of the primary reasons, besides not reusing a space station again, that it's back on a starship, because I wanted to go ahead and kind of bring that back around to being able to have that freedom, because obviously on Deep Space Nine it was much more restricted. You had the runabouts, you eventually had the Defiant, but that was really just for important missions, usually combat, things like that. So you kind of missed out on that, and that's where I got the idea to kind of bring together a hybrid between the two, because people love the story development, people love the characters of Deep Space Nine, which is something I think was kind of missing from a lot of Next Generation, but people also loved that exploration from the Next Generation. So I was like, why don't we go ahead, kind of meld them both together into something a little more unique, so that you have the really good storytelling and the really good character developments, but you're also getting that TNG feel, being able to go ahead and go out, explore the strange new worlds again, and both in my mind, both new ones and old ones, because I think there's a lot of old stuff that can be returned to, that we have yet to kind of really get tons in depth on, especially like the Romulans and Romulus, for example. I've always hated how they've only shown it a few times. We've gotten so little of that. It's just like, oh, I want to see more of that. See more of like Kronos at some point, and what that's like, other than a few like artist shots from above of what the city looks like, things like that. And of course, you have now the ability to, especially now that the war's over, go into like the Gamma Quadrant, for example. You have, if I'm correct, I'm still super messy on the maps. You have the Beta Quadrant that you can still go ahead and explore a bit, which is more towards the Klingons' territory, and even potentially the Delta Quadrant.
Ace, sorry, let me interrupt you a sec. We're gonna say goodnight to Denali, and Denali, thank you so much for coming and giving us an update, as you always promise you will. You always deliver, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you for having me there. Nice talking with you, Ace, as well. And I look forward to your future success. Persistence. A writer told me, to make anything happen, persistence is needed. So,
yeah, for sure.
Very true.
So, all right.
Denali, you will give us more updates soon?
Absolutely. You'll be the first to know, Pete.
Okay. And guys, again, go to the Immortal Mask and get. I know not everybody here is registered. You guys want to register to get on the mailing list for updates and on Denali's. And then, Denali, do you want to just really quick explain again about your Kickstarter? I'm sorry, your Indiegogo
Kickstarter, because it has a
Kickstarter,
board.
sorry.
It has a board game. No, you were right the first time.
Okay.
So yeah, so for those who register for the Immortal Mask, right now I'm doing a special promotion from since I launched. Started talking about the Immortal Mask to the moment I'll launch in Kickstarter. Those who sign up and purchase my product when I do the crowdfunding will be eligible to receive a free limited edition variant trading card that will be usable for the board game component of it. So it'll be awesome. It'll be collectible because only those people who sign up to the newsletter will be the ones who will receive that specific card.
And Denali, can you put in that link again? Because I lost it when I got kicked off. Can you put in the Kickstarter link again?
The website is dinales.com or the immortalmask.com, and you just have to put in your email address, hit submit, and you're already in there. And when I launch the Kickstarter, everybody will get the update, and
okay. Gotcha.
It'll be happening. But I'll definitely be putting sending out updates as well through it. So yep, thank you, man.
Gotcha. Okay.
So much appreciated, PJ. I look forward to your writing, Ace, and talking more Star Trek, because those are one of my passions. Yeah,
for sure. Hit me up anytime, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great night, Denali. Get some rest.
Same to you. Thanks.
Take care. Okay, Ace, go ahead.
Sure. Trying to think where I was. My brain just completely fizzled out for a second.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
We were talking about. I had just asked you about the exploration component, and
yeah. So
let me just say that Axonar Comics, and the reason I keep saying this, Trey, is because somebody still hasn't heard about it. So Max World Entertainment is Trey from Axonar Comics, in case anybody hasn't heard yet. So make sure you go and follow Max World Entertainment, and Trey. If I haven't, I'm giving you a wrench so you can put in your new YouTube channel. So please go ahead and put in your YouTube channel, and I remind everybody to go ahead and post their links. Anybody who has a wrench can post their links at any time they want. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Ace.
All good. But yeah, so I feel like you can go ahead and really, I want to go ahead, I want to make a return to some previously explored regions of space, obviously, as well as going into maybe ones that have only been vaguely talked about or mentioned, and even to new areas. Obviously, you have the Gamma Quadrant still, the wormhole should still be there, should still be open and ready for business, and even potentially, I'm still tossing around the idea. I've tossed around the idea of the Delta Quadrant at some point too, because there's obviously different kinds of technology, especially that Voyager has brought home, that could potentially allow for something like that, maybe making like some outposts out there, some different things like that. So yeah, I want to kind of mix it up a little bit, having again both the old and the new in there, and especially one that I'm really enthusiastic about, that I really want to get into, is the Tholians, because I feel like they were again one of the most cheated species in all of Star Trek, and one of the most interesting.
Yes, you have mentioned it in our conversations. You've mentioned it a few times. Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. And they are very different life form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're mineral based. They're hermaphrodites. They basically have to maintain a really high core temperature to them, and they aren't humanoids. So you have a complete, which from what I'm aware too, because obviously that's something that I think people have to think about. It's like, well, how's this possible? Because they're kind of such an outlier, and one of the cool things about their lore which is not official canon, is that they come from another galaxy entirely, and that was just for me. That's like, oh my
Really?
gosh, mind blown. Yeah.
Where did you
And
pick? Where did you get that info? By the way, from
I forget. I
from a
think
novel.
no, I think it was so it was something a little more obscure. It was official Star Trek, but it was not a part of the actual canon. I don't recall. It's been a while,
Gotcha.
but because I
Okay.
did like very careful research on the Tholians to try and get as much of that kind of information as possible, because I wanted to kind of develop them a whole bunch more. And I'll save the other bit for a little in a little bit with characters. But and here's the thing too, is even with even from a standpoint of pre-established canon, I'd say it's actually possible to not only from the idea that there's potentially technology that hasn't been seen before, but going through Voyager recently, one of the episodes, I think it was season 2, I want to say, they encountered basically a physical working transporter that used the concept of folding space, if anyone remembers that. So that's potentially one of those ways that could have been done, because they could go ahead using that, transfer over about 40,000 light years at a
And
time.
thank you, Lady Q, for those comments that you are putting in about the Tholians. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ace.
No, it's good. It's good. But yeah, like they're ones that I absolutely want to see more, and I actually do need to go ahead. I'd love if you could go ahead and message me or something, Lady Q, some of those episodes, because Enterprise is the one series that I have not gone through yet. So I
And I'm
do
putting
check that
Ace's
out.
I'm putting Ace's Twitter again in the chat.
Thank you. Because yeah, I'd love to see a little more, because I have seen some of the screens. I have at least seen some of the clips and screen caps from it, but I want to actually see more in depth so I can kind of get even more familiar with them. Because again, I'm absolutely in love with the Tholians as a species. Is this I want to develop them so much more. Yeah, I accepted that, Lady Q. Let's see though. Thinking. And I'm trying to think like where to go right this second. Any other questions offhand?
Yeah, let me just mention, guys, Fortean had a great interview today with the Dega. Please sub to Fortean's channel. He's just recently started streaming. He's doing a great job. And Mando starting to stream too. So please also sub to Mando. Mando, put your own channel in there too. Now let's see. All right. So you have what would be equivalent to what? To perhaps a movie. So you have like the script for perhaps for a movie or for an episode.
For an actual pilot episode. That's
for an
what
actual
it's,
pilot
yeah,
episode
that's what it's
of
intended to
okay.
be.
Gotcha. Now I've asked you this before, but not in front of everybody else. Is your let's say your script, okay, your script idea is a great idea. Now let's say for some reason it's not happening with Trek. Is your script adaptable to do you see any scenario where you would adapt it to Orville universe?
It could, but first of all, I'm not as familiar with the Orville's universe, and I lack the same passion, unfortunately, which I think is important. But I think if it came down to it, I could do that. From a creative standpoint, I definitely think that I could do that. I could go ahead and pull those ideas together and put something together like that, and kind of.
Now, you haven't watched the full 2 seasons of Orville, correct?
No, I've seen some of. I think I've seen a bit early in of the first season.
If I were you, I would just jump into the second season, and then you can go back and watch the other stuff. But because I think that I think the first few episodes are some people. There's a lot of Trekkies who didn't connect with it because of the first few episodes. They find their footing a little further down on season 1. So. And definitely in season 2. So that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, like I'll be honest. One of the few things for me that just isn't as amazing for me. Which yeah, I just noticed what you're saying, Fortian, because I one of the episodes I did see, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels exactly like the original series. But one of the things that I've never been a fan of is, despite my age, I generally more mature on things, and I've never cared for the kind of what I consider to kind of be like the armpit fart humor that the Seth MacFarlane usually incorporates. That's never really been my forte. So that's the one thing that's always been like, I'm iffy on.
So Ellie says, stop this live stream and go watch the Orville now. That's what Ellie is saying. So now Ace. So now I do think. See, there's an issue here, and the issue here for me and you as a young creator, the issue here is that you're going to have to go out and prove yourself.
Yeah.
So what you might find yourself doing is you might find yourself finishing this script, and then you might start working on other stuff because you're going to have to go out and prove yourself as a sci-fi writer in general. What do you think that's what's going to happen?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know what's going to happen. It could go that way. I've had that as a suggestion. I personally felt like, obviously I do think I need to prove myself with it, but in that regards, I feel like I've kind of doubled down because of that, and kind of gone like full blown into trying to make everything I'm doing with this as perfect and as amazing as possible, because I really want to be able to show like I can go ahead and I can catch people's attention with this. People can get on board with this and can be really enthusiastic about it. It's not just me going ahead, tossing together a quick script, trying to push it at some executive and saying, "Here, give me a nice high, powerful position, and let me do what I want." It's kind of my way of showing like I can do exactly what I claim. I do have the skill, and I do have the capability and the passion to get this where it needs to go. But if it came down to it, and again, which it always could, I would definitely go ahead. I do at least have one other idea in mind. I don't know if it's necessarily I consider it sci-fi, but it's a really fun idea that I've got in mind. Obviously, I'm not going to mention it. That I would try and do some work on. If I finish this up and I try and push it and it doesn't go anywhere because they're like, "Oh, we want to see," and maybe even do some books, some things like that. Try and make progress.
No, let me get, guys. The top secret I was talking about is not an NDA to listen to Trek Aces. I was replying to Mando Merc was talking about movies. Top secret, the movie. But I as a suggestion to you though, hello Jeff. As a suggestion to you, I would say that you're gonna have, whatever sector you're in, anybody who's 20, 21, 22 years old, 23, even 25 years old has got to kind of prove their worth in a certain way and gain experience. And it's not so much maybe about proving yourself as much as gaining experience. And I would suggest that when you finish your script, that you maybe go work on something related to what you're doing, and because people need to see you as a writer in order for your dream to happen, because you've been very clear what your dream is. In order for your dream to happen, people need to know that you're a sci-fi writer.
Yeah.
So it probably means that you're going to have to grow as a sci-fi writer. And even when you finish this script, you're going to have to grow and work on stuff and gain experience and become a better writer. Even, I'm not saying it's not good what you're doing now, but and listen, there's a lot of people. Listen, they're hiring people who shouldn't even be working on Star Trek as writers.
Yeah.
If go out there, go and prove yourself as a sci-fi writer. And
Alex Kurtzman, could you use an extra writer? Uh,
Oh gosh. Ace. I do think your noble Trek ideas will get chopped up with Kurtzman. To be honest.
I do too. I would refuse to work with that man. I'm sorry. I would for me I would refuse even if they agreed to run it and they're like, sure, we'll give you a chance. If I didn't have appropriate creative control and I was working with people like that don't have any sort of passion for Trek, don't understand it, don't care about it, I
Hmm.
would flat up turn them down and say, nope, I'll burn the script before I let you screw it up that
And,
badly.
and and listen, Denali made a really good point. He basically, you have a pilot for you have a pilot for a show, and this is your dream. Then maybe you should become maybe you should try to become somebody who will one day, be a showrunner. Maybe that's where the direction you need to go, like Denali suggested. Maybe that's the only way where you can do what you want to do to be, to get that level. And that means you got to go work on other stuff first. You got to go work on,
Yeah.
and listen, I got to tell you, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of quality. I know this is not what you want to hear, but um, maybe making a kick-ass uh, fan film is gets you on the radar, on somebody's radar.
It would either do that or it would put me on a hit list. One of the two. Yeah, I mean, I would totally be down for something like that. Like, I would completely go ahead and put together even potentially a new script for like a fan film. But for me, the problem is I work on the creative end. I have no means of production or anything like that. So I'd probably have
Yeah.
to partner up with someone who would be willing and capable of doing something like that.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, our community is full of all kinds of people. And I mean, we're interviewing an actor on we're Eric the Smoke. We're interviewing Eric the Smoke on Wednesday. And Eric, for example, has been in all kinds of fan films. And there are some actors in the Trek community who have been in a lot of sci-fi fan films. I mean, we interviewed Corin Nemec, who was in Star Trek Renegades, and Rico the other day. We interviewed Rico. He was in Horizons and what was the other one? He was in two different kinds of and two kinds of fan films. Now, the reason I asked you about Orville, one of the reasons is that because of these absurd and abusive limitations that they have put on Trek fan films now. So like anybody who's doing Trek fan films now are going to be, they can't use any character that's appeared before in Trek, for example, and they
Yeah.
can't. So and you can only have a 15-minute film, and you can only do two of them. So that the restrictions are so severe
Yes,
that
it's terrible.
I wanted to suggest to you that maybe to prove yourself, maybe Orville, you're going to realize when you watch more Orville that it's as Trek as anything, and maybe even better in some ways. And there's no restrictions on their fan film the policies right now. So maybe maybe that's a good how do I say maybe that's a good place to exhibit your skills.
Yeah, but
Just a
potentially.
suggestion.
So yeah.
Yeah. But well, maybe we can work on that, DJ. Yeah. Um, maybe we can. Yeah, we got it. DJ has a great channel. By the way, Deej and everybody else in here who has a channel, please put in your channels. 2, 3, 4 times during the stream. And we're gonna wrap it up soon, but I wanna let Ace go ahead. Ace, I'm sorry. Where do you see what's your next step with what you're doing right now with your project?
For me, it's actually kind of finishing the writing and any of the other creative stuff. I'm probably about, let's say, halfway through the script. It's actually ridiculously hard for me to focus down on it because as much as I love it, my mind jumps around. I think Loki mentioned before when we were talking like a bunch of monkeys doing a whole ton of different stuff. So it makes it really hard to focus down on that. So I kind of just get it in bits and pieces wherever I can, whenever I'm feeling inspired. But basically, that creative stuff is what I'm really focusing on right now. And I've more recently started to look into avenues to try and see about pushing this forward. Like I've even considered trying to find a way to like drop a note essentially to like JG Hertzler because I absolutely love him as an actor. I think he's absolutely amazing as Martok. As a matter of fact, Martok is a character that I have brought back basically as a guest role, even in the pilot, because again, I can't get enough of him. And
He's great. Martok is great.
yeah,
Wow.
and who knows? I mean, if there's all sorts of different ideas that I have of ways to try and push that forward. So that's kind of besides the creative stuff. That's kind of what I'm slowly looking into and trying to find different ways to try and push that out there. But in the meantime, it's mostly just working on the creative, trying to perfect things, get it continued, stuff like that.
I gotta say though, people like Hertzler, they want to work. They want to do more acting. They want to do more Trek. They want to do more Martok. You know, he wants to do his role more. There's a lot of actors like that. They want to get back into their roles. They would love to do more Trek work, but they're not really being given the chance themselves. So, I really think that you have to like put a plan together to finish your script and put a plan together on how do I make myself relevant in in sci-fi writing, and choose projects and maybe put, listen, if you got a good script, you could get a couple of actors together, then you could get funding, and you could get and listen, that being said, Ace, there are people I can connect you with who can give you better advice than myself. So I will do that.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like I know one suggestion I had actually recently, and it made a lot of sense because if I'm correct, I'm a bit rusty with some of this and I don't know all the inner workings well, but I know, like, I believe in more recent years, one of the methods a lot of networks will use is called the 50-50 deal, where they'll basically go ahead and say, they'll basically contract with like a studio such as Bad Robot, for example, and they'll go ahead and say, okay, you go ahead and you film this, you go ahead, you provide all the funding for it, which I believe is where you get like all the different like executive producers, things like that you see credited in a lot of this stuff nowadays. And you go ahead, you basically get all that funding, you put this together yourselves, and we'll go ahead, we'll basically allow you to use our facilities, whatever you need for that stuff, and we'll go ahead, we'll air this, we'll do all that different stuff, and that's kind of how it'll go. And someone actually had said to me recently, and they're like, why don't you try and go to like a studio directly and try and go ahead and convince them, pitch them, and say, hey, especially if you could like line up like actors like Hertzler, things like that, and be like, okay, we've got all this backing, we've got all this kind of set ready to go, we think this can work, would you be willing and interested to take this on, and if so, would you go to CBS and basically make an offer to do something like that?
So would you say, is Martok written into your script?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
He's actually in the script. Garrick's in the script as well because I love Garrick so much.
I know you. I like Garrick too.
But
by the way, have you seen that the actor? What's his? Oh, Garrick's actor's name. What's
Andrew
his name?
Robinson.
Yeah, he's been on the Seventh Rule a lot lately.
Yeah, I still have to go back and see that. I want to so badly.
He's been on several times actually.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, he's another I want back desperately, just because he's such a unique actor, and just Garrick is my all-time favorite character in all of Star Trek, hands down, my absolute favorite. So I was like, you know what, we're bringing him back in, and I'll actually give a little spoiler because I would love to go ahead and mention a bit about the characters,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
go.
Garrick, I actually decided to go ahead as the new leader of the Cardassian Union as his new role, which my reasoning on that, and I might shift it around if I feel the need to, but my reasoning on that is, if you think about it, all the leaders that we were aware of before were killed during the Dominion War. Dukat, dead.
Sure.
Damar, dead. Guy who replaced Damar, very dead. So, and for me, it's like, well, the Federation would be familiar with Garrick, at least, because he helped them out. He did work for them in the war, and he's kind of like the last man standing, so to speak. So I was just like, you know what, this would be an amazing position. It gives me a great excuse to bring him back in to his role again, even if it's as only a pretty much a simple guest role. Um, I don't know, Kronos. If he actually did, someone mentioned, someone go ahead, mention that if he actually had that role in Star Trek Online, because I'd be curious. I tried Star Trek Online for like a week, and then I fell off with that, unfortunately.
Oh, Ace, I am gonna have to. I am going to have to cut it short. But I want to thank you for you've been so transparent with talking about your project, and I loved that. I loved that you would actually show us the sketchings you did. That was great. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And let us any updates that are worth mentioning, please let us know. And I'm gonna connect I'm gonna connect you to people who could probably give you better advice. And I mean, who knows, maybe your dream is not that far away. Maybe it's closer than you think. Who knows?
Yeah,
And
and I'll say this: either way, I will keep fighting for this as long as it takes. I have immense passion for this. I want to do absolutely nothing else. I will get there if it kills me.
you want to do this professionally, right?
Yeah.
So listen, if you want to do this professionally, then let's, because I've always mentored entrepreneurs a lot, in my other stuff, in my real life, in my non YouTube life. So let's talk, because I think that you need a plan. What you need is a
Sure.
plan, and if you start to execute that plan, then opportunities, will come your way. So.
Yeah, sure thing.
And Mando, there's several people who are expressed interest in talking to you. Lady Q, Mando. Oh, great. Mando would love to have you on as well on his channel.
Yeah, I would absolutely love it at any point. Anyone who would love to talk more, even if it's in private and you just want to talk and hear more about this, I cannot stress enough how much I love to gush about all of this stuff. So characters, anything you ever want to ask, I love going ahead and chatting about this.
So, guys, I'm putting Trek Ace's the Trek Ace is his name on Twitter. I'm putting his Twitter in here again. So, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mac. Thank you, everybody. Thanks all you guys for being here. And any final words, Ace?
Nothing I can honestly, nothing I can really think of other than I really hope that one of these days this will officially make it, and I'll be able to go ahead and bring a lot of smiles to people's faces with this. Even if it was fan film, even if it was more of an in private thing, I just hope this at least maybe encourages people to, and gives people a little hope that have been feeling down about the state of Star Trek, that maybe there's a possibility of something amazing to come their way again.
Yeah. And let me just point out, and I'm not, Picard is a very different show, guys. But let me just say that there is finally somebody working on Trek. Terry Matalas has been named the new showrunner for Picard season 2. There finally is somebody on Trek who actually has worked on real Trek before. So maybe there's a slight glimmer of hope there. But all right, guys. Thank you again, Ace. And thank you, Lady Q, Purple Lady, Dave G, Kronos, Adega, Mr. Miles, Big Mac, Tyrone, Mando, Fortian, everybody who's been in here, Loki, Dave Bob, Mr. Lundell, Dave G, Louise, Jeff, everybody who's been in here. Thanks you guys for participating, Mr. Miles. Thank you for everybody who's participating. You guys have made it a very special program with your participation. And I want to thank again Denali and Ace. Everybody have a great night. Stay safe, or have a good morning, Tyrone. I know you're starting your day. Everybody have a great morning, great night, wherever you are. Stay safe, and many blessings to all of you. Bye, guys.